Hey friends, good evening. Let me ask you a question. Haven't our elders told us this at the beginning of the career? Be successful, but don't let the success get into the head. Almost all of us will raise hand to that. How many of us have actually failed for that? Not me, at least. A quick reply comes. But then why do we have so many hate stories about toxic bosses, horrible stories about the bosses and, line managers floating around? So there must be a truth about it. And I'm going to discuss that today. And to have it on the platform, I have an industry veteran and a mentors 2000, Mr. Ravindra Bhan with us. Welcome, Ravindra.
Thank you. Thanks, Shuma.
Okay, let me give a glimpse of what Ravindra Bhan, he is known to most of the people in the industry, but as a formality, let me just introduce to you. He has more than 35 years of experience at various levels, strategic operations. He has worked for, all kinds of companies, made the big shots like L&T or Schneider or GE, to small SMEs to medium-sized companies. He's on the board of some of the forums, and he has been, defining the work perspective from a very different level altogether. And why I would say that is because he's not one of the veterans or a mentors who gives the motivational gyan. He keeps talking about a lot of things which probably will not be able to relate to. He is the one who gives you his industry experience, core industry experience. And I am, a party to that. And he's one of my mentors as well. So without much waiting, let me welcome Ravindra over again, and let us have some quick question and answer sessions, which I have in mind for last um 16 years. Let me introduce myself. I am Jumat Timde, and I am an SHR and SCP, a CPHR professionals with more than 15 years of experience. And I have experience in all kind of transactional and transformational HR. And this question has always stirred a kind of discomfort in me. Slowly getting to the leadership positions, I think I need to have these questions answered for myself as well as for many of us who has this question in the mind. So without much delay, Ravindra, let us begin.
Yeah, thanks again, very formally now, and thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I try to be practical more than based on books and theories, and I do hope that I'll be able to come up to your expectation in terms of what you are expecting. What I see here is a lady with a lot of experience in HR, and let me confess, I have never handled HR per se. I have had colleagues reporting into me from the HR department, but technically, you will not hear the technical HR terminology, but you will possibly hear what actually happens in the minds of human beings at any position.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
please go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to understand the first thing which comes into my mind, that what happens when an employee changes his seat from a team member or a follower to a team leader or a manager. What changes overall that suddenly there's a complete shift in his behavior?
To give you a practical answer first thing that changes in most of the cases is the salary, okay, and the number of people that report into you. But leaving that part aside, I think what you're wanting to know, what is the kind of behavioral change that takes place in a person when he goes from let's say, a team position into a leadership position. Now, I would honestly believe that there wouldn't be a single one size fits all kind of an answer to this. A lot of it will depend upon what has been his or her journey before coming into the position. Because as we know that people can come into a leadership position from various angles. Somebody could be working in a team position, did excellent, was now capable of taking a larger responsibility, and therefore was put into a leadership position. That could be one. The second could be that somebody could have joined from elsewhere and suddenly is in a new atmosphere where he is in a leadership position compared to a team position where he was earlier. Now, his behavior will possibly be different. So a lot will depend upon what has been his or her journey before coming into this position. Now, that's where the catch comes. if the person has come from what we may call from the ranks, that means she has learned it right from the start and slowly grown into that position. So the leader in her has already emerged over a period of time. So for her, the transition is really seamless. But if it is a person who has been promoted or been brought in from outside, from an outright team position to a leadership position without really having those leadership traits or leadership skills, that person behaves in most cases. I'm not saying in every case, but in most cases, that person is likely to behave what you call toxic.
Okay.
Now,
Agreed.
to what extent it's really toxic or what is really being toxic or not is a separate matter of discussion. But to answer your question, it will depend upon where she is coming from.
Mm-hmm. So this leadership shock, what I would say that, when you change from one position to another position, as people say that when you move from one place to another, cultural shock. So something like leadership shock, is it temporary? Is it permanent? Is it pertinent to a particular industry or a culture?
Uh,
What are the characteristics?
I don't think it has anything to do with the industry because leadership is more of a behavior or it's more of a trait. So if you have, if I may say so, if you have a lousy behavior, you will have it in any industry. If you have an excellent behavior, you will have excellent behavior in any industry. So I think it's irrespective of the industry. Yeah, in some very small cases, it might have some industry linkage, but I would not think that to be significant enough to make a general statement. The shock again relates to the same thing as to where he or she came from. Now, if he or she has come into a position which, if I may say so, didn't really deserve, then the possibility is that she will try to impose that without really having being deserving it. You know what? You become a boss and now you start bossing because you believe that bossing is the requirement of this new role.
Leadership, yeah.
That can be dangerous. But if it is a person who has come up from the ranks and whose leadership traits have developed over a period of time, उसमें shock नहीं होता है. हाँ, थोड़ी देर के लिए shock होगा because the person whom he was a teammate till yesterday suddenly calls her madam or sir and that kind of thing. But he or she overcomes that in a very quick period of time. So it really depends upon the internal person as to what kind of leadership traits does he or she have before being put onto that chair.
True, true. In fact, I believe that, sometimes, most of the time, people believe that, when they become a leader, they actually become a boss. And also sometimes with their behavior, some of the times which I've noticed that, sometimes I feel attack is the best form of defense. So instead of showing that, okay, I'm taking some time to become a leader, I'm adjusting to my position, I will suddenly start behaving so unapproachable. I will create a wall around me so that everybody sees that, okay, he's the boss. So, great.
Yeah, it happens out of, and I'll be very practical. It happens out of insecurity. Because if I go to a place which I really don't deserve, then at every point in life or every point in that period, I am aware of the fact that I don't really deserve to be here. I'm not aware knowingly. I'm aware in my subconscious mind that this is not my chair. Now, but since I am sitting on this chair, I have to behave like this chair. And now behaving like this chair, the first few things that comes to the person's mind is that I should not be approachable. I should, in certain cases, shout at people. I should make people accountable. And the meaning of accountability is, looking over their shoulders every now and then. Acha, iska kya hua, uska kya hua, that type of thing. Now, to answer this point in very brief, I think all of us, those of us who behave like bosses as opposed to leaders, are basically coming from a position of insecurity or in subconscious mind not being sure that they really deserve to be here. So insecurity is one big reason that will need to be looked at.
And who probably would be responsible to highlight this or be accountable for? I mean, is it the individual, the HR of the company, the governance, the leader, management? Who should be the core person to make this thing realize and work upon it?
But look, honestly, First of all, none of these people that you noted, that you mentioned, because these are all regulatory controls. If it's HR, it's a regulatory. If it is governance, it is regulatory. If it is the boss, it is regulatory. There are two people, in my opinion, who can really give you the correct feedback, right? First set of people who can give you the correct feedback are the team members that are reporting to you. Now, they will not give it to you in verbal terms, but it will show in their behavior. And you as a leader need to have that understanding to pick up those signals and understand, hey, look, this is not him, it's me. You know, like one of my very able managers used to say, sir, if my people do not perform, if my people do perform, I congratulate them. And if they don't perform, I question myself.
Now, you need to take cue from there, mostly from the known.
Because what is it that I didn't do that the performance didn't come out of the person? So the person who is reporting to you is your best source of feedback. And remember, he or she will not give you feedback in verbal terms. That feedback will come to you in non-verbal behavior. So that is one person who, in my opinion, is the best guide. The second guide, honestly, is yourself. You have to put an automatic monitoring mechanism on yourself that when I was a team member, I used to behave in so and so ways. Hey, is there any area where I'm again behaving in the same way? I'm again behaving like a team member. I'll give you an example. A senior sales manager becomes director of sales. Right? Now, as the manager of sales, whenever there are internal meetings or whenever it is his director or the other fellow people on the board, he will try to defend the customer and say the product is not good, we are not able to get sales, we are not giving credit, our price is high, and so on and so forth. That's what a team member is expected to do. But now suddenly when you come to a leadership position, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Because then, rain, hail, or storm, you got to sell. Whether I've got a lousy product, I've got a very bad price, no matter what I've got, if I'm the director of sales, I have to sell. Now, I can't be giving those arguments. But if as a director of sales, you are giving the same kind of defenses, the same kind of arguments that a sales manager would give, then effectively speaking, you are a sales manager with a higher salary.
Yes, yes.
You are not a director of sales. Same thing would apply in any function. It would apply in HR, it will apply in technology, it will appear in market, in purchase, in human resources, everywhere. So you have to know that in the position of a leader, in leadership position, you have the ownership of that function. In a team position, that ownership is distributed. So to be honest, in a team position, you have more liberty to challenge the system.
True.
In a leadership position, you have a responsibility to change the system.
Absolutely.
Because if you start challenging it, you'll become transparent.
Yeah. Okay, now when we are talking about somebody moving from a sales manager position to sales director, so I also think that there is a transition in the personality of the individual. Like he needs to become more strong mentally and emotionally. He needs to be more emotionally intelligent. So can these be taught? In a nutshell, what I want to understand is, can leaders be trained, made, or leaders are inborn? Sometimes you feel that even a team member is acting like a leader.
Yeah, you see, if you ask 100 consultants around the world and you tell them, are leaders made or are they born? Maybe 90 will tell you that leaders are born. Okay, but I belong to that balance 10, which tell you that everybody is born equal, whether it's a leader or anybody else. I don't want to give rhetorical examples of how a chaiwala can become a prime minister or how so on and so forth can happen. But our mind, our human capabilities as we are born are exactly the same. Maybe with a few differences in terms of our behavior, genetics, etc., etc. Leave that apart. So everything depends upon how you've been brought up, how you've been trained, and the same thing continues even in the organization. You cannot, I mean, I'll give you my own example. In my first year of, in my first job, my boss possibly found me useless. And he said, this guy can be shifted to some other department. Now, for some time, I mean, I was just a 20-something-year-old guy who did not know all this, and I felt that maybe I'm actually useless, right? So I was given to some other department. Now, this particular guy, he was a perfect mentor. He would take me to task for my results, but he would also handhold as to how to get them. He would also caution me on what can go wrong. He would encourage me on what would go right. And over a period of time, besides learning myself, besides correcting my own behavior, I also picked up those traits from him.
True.
And those traits then became a part of my own traits. Now, that is why, but that's how, I mean, if at all I can call myself a leader, that's how the leader in me was developed. And this happens in most cases. I mean, it happens in practically all cases. I'm not at the same time discounting that certain people are born with some kind of a leadership ability or leadership genetics. But if you are born as the most lousy leadership person, I assure you that you can become the best leader provided you make a decision, provided you are trained properly and you are mentored properly. And that's where the responsibility of HR comes. You have to make sure that while people are in the team positions, how are we going to keep mentor them so that they become tomorrow's leaders? So in short, leaders can be created. It depends on the kind of mentorship, kind of training, kind of behavior analysis, and so on. But it's not that some bricks are born red and some bricks are born black. So red brick cannot become black and vice versa. No, it's not that situation. All human beings have excellent capabilities inborn in them. It depends on how much we unearth.
So it is that in the internal source searching that needs to be done, and then needs to be acted upon.
Call it soul searching or self-assessment.
Yeah, either of that. Okay, taking clue from your personal experiences where you said that your first manager found you lousy and the second manager took you to a different height. Do you think that the follower, the team member, also plays a role in developing a leader? Because you responded well, because you gave what you wanted, he was able to display the characteristics of a true leader. So is there a balance of both?
Let me be honest, and I'll give you an example that I normally do. You see, if you are overweight, let's say, if you are overweight and I am your fitness trainer,
true,
I can tell you what is the diet you should eat, how many hours you should spend on the treadmill. I can show you how to do the treadmill properly. I can show you how to, do all of what is required. But I can't stand on the treadmill for you. You will have to stand on the treadmill. You will have to sweat it out. You will have to do all that. Now, if I compare this to a team member situation, if a team member is stubborn or he is absolutely incorrigible, if I may use the word, and he is not interested in himself, then he not only does not learn himself, he also becomes a problem for the leader. And that is where perhaps leader either changes him or he changes his own behavior or he is asked to go and so on. But those are extreme cases. One thing for sure, if you have a great team, it will have that pass on effect on you. And many times leaders learn from team members and develop those traits. So yes, a team member plays a very important role in the making of a leader.
Should a leader accept that he will take some time to as I say that people say that you should not show your weaknesses, or you should not come across as a weak person in corporate. Should a leader come across and say that, hey, listen, that this is something that is not happening with me. I will take some time, but give me some time, come back to you. Will that acknowledgement help a leader come back, accepting the flaws?
There is a yes and a no answer to that. All right. One is, if I was to give an idealistic answer, you should not be coming out as weak. You should remove your weakness. That's one. Which means you should be honest. If there's some particular skill you don't have, you must tell your management or your bosses or your team members, look, this is not what I know. I'll take so much time to learn this, and then I'll be able to lead you. That should be the honest answer, and that should be the ideal approach. But unfortunately, Juma, what happens is, let us be practical.
Hmm.
This can backfire on you. It depends on who you are telling it to. If you are telling it to an immature super boss, then he feels, अरे यार ये तो गलती की हमने इसको यहाँ पर लाके, ये तो perform ही नहीं करता है, उसको निकाल दो. Now, if you already know that behavior of your super boss, that means you can predict what will be the fate of your honesty and therefore the impact on your career. And that will in turn prevent you from what I call professional integrity. You will not be honest in acknowledging what you don't know. I mean, a leader is not Wikipedia, right? He's not supposed to be knowing everything. But if he is good and honest, which I know he should be, then he can say that I don't know this. But अब उसको problem ये होती है कि मैंने ये अगर no बोला तो उसका impact ये होगा. Now, sometimes that perception is right. Sometimes that perception may be purely wrong. But that perception is there. And that is what prevents people sometimes from acknowledging their weaknesses and therefore addressing their weaknesses.
Yeah, true.
That does happen.
That is something that's seen very frequently.
Yeah.
Since we have so many leaders, leadership stories around us, we have people like Ratan Tata, or many names which are there in the organization, which says that leaders are actually humble, they are benevolent, they're down to earth, they're agile, and they are, they're very easy to assimilate and understand. Then why people do not take these ready-made lessons which are available in buy when you meet the leaders? Why we have exactly opposite leaders floating around?
Yeah. Two answers. And this will again sound extreme. Leadership trainers have not sold leadership properly.
Okay.
Because if you are training somebody to be a leader, then you have to teach him those skills. You have to train him in these skills. Now, that means a bad job has been done on you in as much as training is concerned, right? The second problem is that most of us, and unfortunately that is true more in the Asian, not even in the Asian, in the Indian context, we do not invest in ourselves in terms of what do I need to get trained for. Now, if I don't get trained for in leadership for those traits that I don't have, then I will not pick up those. Now, your question was, why do people not do it? Very simple. They are not aware. They don't know the return on investment. They don't know that if they spend 15 days training themselves in that, what could be the answer? Now, I'm not talking only of formal classroom training. There are various ways of getting trained. There are various ways of getting mentored. But do we seriously ask ourselves that, look, if I am approachable, if I am humble, if I am agile, if I am this, that, and the other of all the qualities that you described, then here is my return. Yeah. Here is my impact. Here is what I can gain from that. So, जब तक वो ROI आदमी को नहीं समझ में आएगा, तो वो नहीं करेगा. You see, you take the case of an owner-employer, who, at least in our country, whom we call Lala boss. Now, Lala boss is never behaving like a good trainer. I'm not saying all, but I would say a majority. Why? Because, I mean, they're not approachable, they're not agile, they're not humble, many of them, right? Why? Because somewhere down their mind, they have not understood the ROI of being so. Now, wo ROI समझने के लिए, it is the job of the trainers, mentors, coaches, and all under the aegis of HR to develop those qualities and show that benefit. Because believe me, nobody will ever change unless he or she sees the benefit of changing.
Yeah.
Right? So that is the reason people have not understood the ROI of being a good leader.
True. And most of the leaders believe in carrot and stick format. How pertinent is this behavior? Is it culture-wise, since we were talking about this behavior most prominent in some of the countries in Asia, or I do not want to name a country or a place like it, but is it specific to certain culture? Does culture has a role in it?
I don't think it is a cultural issue. A carrot and stick is an important tool of managing, and it's an effective tool of managing. But problem कहाँ हो जाती है that leaders who are not impactful, they do either too much of carrot or too much of stick. No, both are wrong. Now, I would not use the carrot and stick phraseology. I would say reward and reprimand.
Yeah.
You see, many people like to give rewards to their people. Very good, and you must. And if you don't reward your people, you will not get the output, or you will not be a good leader. But at the same time, there are many of us in the leadership position who are shy of reprimanding.
Yeah.
Now, reprimand is not shouting.
True.
Reprimand is not blaming. Reprimand is telling the person that, look, if I have 100 rupees of increment to give, I will need to give it to the person who has performed better than you. And this has to be digitally calculated, no opinion basis.
Yeah.
Right? I'll be able to give it to him rather than to you, because if you don't do that, you are punishing the person who has performed.
True.
So I believe not reprimanding somebody is an automatic punishment to the person who deserves reward.
The critical feedback aspect.
I mean, call it critical feedback. I call it feedback. Because performance is a yes/no answer, yes/no ma'am issue.
Yeah.
Now, somebody may say that no, I could not achieve sales, but I did this. I could not. Now, if this and that was a part of your written down deliverable, fine. But if this and that was not a part of your written down deliverable, and you did not perform what was expected to be, what was expected out of you, and you did not deliver, then it is non-performance. And in the leadership position, we have to be bold, firm, polite, agile, everything, and give the person the correct feedback. I would not call it positive feedback, negative feedback. Those are give him correct feedback. That, look, you were to perform 100 units of this work, you have performed only 80 units. Therefore, I'll be only able to give you 20 marks, and so on. You have to be able to prove that, and you have to be honest in that. You cannot be downplaying somebody because you don't like her face, or feel कि नहीं ये late आती है office में. अरे लेट आती है ऑफिस में तो उससे तुमको क्या फर्क पड़ता है, as long as she is delivering. Unless late नहीं आना is a part of her written down deliverables.
Yeah, if that's a part of the performance criteria.
So reward for sure, and also reprimand for sure.
Okay, coming to the feedback aspect, recently I read in Harvard Business Study, since I was digging a little bit about the leadership, it says that only 25% of the leadership positions are retained beyond 2 to 3 years. Most of the people fail. I mean, this is global data. This is global data, irrespective of how modern or how brilliant the culture is. Irrespective of that, not more than 25% of the CEOs are retained beyond 2 to 3 years. What is your saying?
You mean to tell me that the lifeline of a CEO is 3 years, is it?
Yeah.
I would not, I mean, I've not gone through the study. I would love to do that. You can educate me a little more on that. But I don't think it has got to do anything with a set formula. You see, CEOs and leaders are changed for a variety of reasons. Okay. One could be non-performance. Second could be that he or she could be moved into another vertical or another area which is larger than the present one. So he or she is able to take a larger responsibility.
This was specifically pertaining to the performance aspect.
Yeah, I have all the respect for the Harvard Business Review and their study, but when they say 25% of the leaders, I believe they are talking about 25% of the leaders that they talked with.
Of course.
The world is not those 1,000 or 2,000 people that Harvard Business Review can meet. Now, they might have extrapolated that data based on these 1,000, 2,000 people. To my mind, that is that's irrelevant. I mean, I don't want to use the word bullshit, but that is really irrelevant. Juma, we live in India. Total population 1.3 billion, right? There must be at least 1 to 2 million CEOs in India of various organizations, right? How many of them have been fired within 3 years? I certainly do not believe the number is 25%.
Okay.
Yeah, they might be talking of a certain category, a certain group, a certain industry, a certain geography. That is fine. But to make a scathing statement that 25% of all leaders are lousy is very, very extreme.
True. I'm glad. So much of talking that I want to do. However, lastly, I want to understand that what would you like to tell to people who are either on that leadership position or gonna become a leader? What is your industry experience that you would like to share with us?
Well, that could be a whole book, but if I were to summarize it in a few words or sentences, number one, constantly keep increasing the value that you can add.
Okay, yeah.
That means sharpen yourself, leadership or no leadership. You can be an extremely efficient plumber, and you can be an extremely inefficient CEO.
Mm.
So your requirement as a professional is to sharpen yourself at every point of time. And once you are sharp enough, that itself becomes a part of your leadership composition. The second thing is when you are in a leadership position, don't count by what you have achieved.
Mm.
Because remember, what you have achieved is not really achieved by you. It is achieved by a set of people who are reporting to you or who are your team members or so on. So look at how can I make each one of them perform. Now, if you have 10 people and all 10 are performing, then you as the leader have performed. But if you have 10 people, out of which 5 are your most have blue-eyed boys, superstars, this, that, and the other, and even if they achieve 100% and the other five have achieved less than 20%, you as a leader have failed. This is pure maths, right? Now, if you were to convert it into a theory, motivational story, etc., a leader is known by the achievements of his followers.
True.
By the change of behavior in his followers. वो खुद अपना कुछ भी बिहेवियर का कोई मतलब ही नहीं है अगर उसके फॉलोअर्स उसका बिहेवियर if they don't emulate that behavior. It's same true in political leadership, in corporate leadership, in any kind of leadership, even at home. If you are a parent and you have, let's say, in older days we used to have a lot of children, you have 10 children, and if only 2 are following you, then you are not a good leader.
Yeah, true. Actually. Good. It was a pleasant interaction. Taking cue from the entire discussion, I also happen to recollect one of your articles where you have spoken about the feedback aspect, that 2% of the companies, how they take care of. And I would love to connect with you on that as well. I
Yes.
think today we had enough of your time. And
Yeah.
I would humbly thank you, Ravindra, for the insights that you have given. As I always say that, you kind of create a pleasant discomfort. You suddenly start get into the rediscovery mode, which is what I really like about you, because very few leaders, they will keep motivating you, they will keep motivating you, but they do not stir the water within you. And once they do that, and then you realize that, where is the wave going. So
I
I
can
think I had
I,
a pleasant interaction with you, and I will again connect with you on the second article which I've read on LinkedIn, and I really liked about it. And thank you so much, Ravinder.
I can only confess one thing. I do not know. You think you are saying that I am able to inspire change in people. That's good. I'm happy to know that. But what I can safely confess and honestly confess that from these sessions, you all learn much lesser than what I learn.
My pleasure.
So these are my learning experiences, and based on that, then I throw it back to you.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Thank you so much,
Thank
and have a
you.
pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you.